All right, today we have with us Marissa Asplund. She is a professional triathlete, and she is the 2010 National Duathlon Champion. Marissa, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem, Craig.
So tell me, Marissa, what was it about our portable oxygen that caught your attention as an endurance athlete?
You know, I'd like to maybe take a step back even and say that I am a professional triathlete now, but I also spent 7 years as a professional road cyclist before my triathlon career. And it was kind of during that period of time when the whole idea of oxygen kind of really became, people were really paying attention to the effects of oxygen in training. And you started, this was probably about 5 years ago for me, you started hearing about people, sleeping at higher altitude, even though this isn't really a new thing, but it just seemed to really be on the forefront of people's minds. I spent some time sleeping in an altitude tent, and then didn't really find that very effective, and I then started hearing about people actually using supplemental oxygen for their training, with the idea being that if you're feeding your muscles or your blood more oxygen, then your muscles therefore can produce more power, which therefore increases your fitness level. And I actually even, this was about 3 years ago, very good professional mountain biker in Durango, Colorado, he would ride around with a cannulus of oxygen on his back during train rides, which was sort of an interesting thing. Yeah. And he's very, very good. He's won several national world championships. But it always looked a little bit cumbersome, and, how does one get that? And
right.
But anyways, so when I came across, the portable oxygen, it really seemed like a natural fit for me. And at the time, this was last year now, I was training with the woman that won the Xterra World Championships. And she was describing to me several weeks leading up to the World Championships, she was doing hyperoxic training on her running intervals. So she essentially was taking in supplemental oxygen and then getting on the treadmill and running 1 mile repeats incredibly fast. And, she won worlds. So it obviously worked for her. So that's really what brought my attention to it.
So let me ask you this. Since you're familiar with this hyperoxic training, and for those of you that are unfamiliar with the term, hyperoxic training means training with additional oxygen. So if you're training on oxygen, and you're putting on more power while you're training, and you're putting on more endurance, and you have just higher intensity training, does that help you get faster results from your training?
Absolutely. So the whole kind of, bare bones approach to training in general is the idea that you do a hard workout, you break your body down, and after you recover much faster, and therefore you're stronger and more fit. So then if we add something like oxygen to your training load, you can therefore break your body down to a greater extent, and then your body therefore will respond to a greater extent. So you're just absolutely increasing your aerobic and even anaerobic fitness level. I mean, it's pretty rudimentary, physiology.
Yeah, a lot of people are not familiar with this concept at all, but I've read some research on it, and obviously hearing that some of these top athletes that you've known and even yourself using it now and getting the same kind of benefits, that's just more food for thought.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let me ask you this. When you first heard about what we were offering, were you skeptical at all, or were you just thinking like, geez, this is just a great idea, this is going to be awesome?
I don't think I was skeptical, because I had already had the information given to me that, lots of people, lots of high-end athletes were starting to use oxygen. So there really wasn't any skepticism in my mind. Okay. And I actually was pretty intrigued by the idea of having a very portable type of oxygen, because then again, I'd go back to seeing this mountain biker in Durango having a backpack of a tank of oxygen with a cannulus. It seemed like a little bit of a cumbersome way to train.
Yeah,
so, no, I wouldn't say I was skeptical. I was actually right on board.
Okay, awesome. So far, how are you using the portable oxygen in training, and what kind of benefits are you getting?
Well, I would say the first, this is going to be kind of a lengthy answer.
Okay.
The first thing I really started to notice and do was swimming. Out of all the three sports, swimming, cycling, and running, swimming has been my weakest part.
Okay.
And a lot of that, I think, is because, number one, just the biomechanics of being in the water, and then also the actual breathing part of swimming, it's quite foreign. And so I thought that it would be a natural fit to have the oxygen fit into doing my shorter sprint sets when I'm swimming. And immediately, this was going back, I believe, last summer, immediately I was taking time off of my 100 sprints in the water. So that was great. That was sort of a test that I did. And then I took it a step further and went and did it with the running, where I would take the oxygen before a track workout, which is a speed session, short speed session. And it just, I was able to go longer on the speed sessions, and it was much more tolerable. You know, doing speed work is never exactly pleasant. It doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to feel good because they're very much, you know, all-out efforts. But the level of which I could sustain an effort was much, much better. And at that time, I was training in Durango, which, you know, that's about 7,000 feet. So that helped. So since then, I've been using, on a regular basis, I've been using the oxygen before interval workouts, swimming, cycling, and running. And I've just noticed, you know, tremendous gains with that type of a workout. And then as of lately, I've also been using it for recovery. And I do notice that I recover quicker. And I also notice that it just sort of gives you an overall sense of well-being. It just kind of, it has kind of a calming effect, which also is going to help in recovery. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're buying into the oxygen loading theory that we've kind of come up with, where we fill the body with oxygen before exertion, kind of like how the endurance athletes carbo load. We're doing the same thing with oxygen, and you're finding that to be very beneficial then.
Absolutely, and you can't argue with numbers, and I'm getting numbers that are showing the results. So, you know, this stuff I believe really works. Yeah.
What about in competition? Have you had a chance to use it much in competition?
You know, it's funny you say that because I just was able to use. I've been mostly using it in my training sets, but this last weekend I did use it in a short time trial that I was a part of. This was my first, bike race of the year, and I was racing against some very veteran women. And I was 14 seconds out of first place on this time trial, and I was not using the aerodynamic equipment that some of the other women that were ahead of me were. And I really do attribute it to the oxygen, and it was fantastic because I could walk up to the line with the oxygen in my hand, be taking it as I'm, 1 minute away from the start of my race. Put the can aside, and then I'm racing. So it's a great way to do it. Yeah.
From what I know of, doping and taking products like EPO, it seems like their main goal is to just increase oxygen supply to the muscles. And with a product like this, it's legal, it's convenient, and it seems to accomplish the same thing. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also add that it's safe. There's no, I don't have to be, again, I can walk to the start of a race with the oxygen in my hand and not have to worry about, doping or any of the kind of dark sides of endurance sports. And it just, again, going back to basic physiology, you add more oxygen to your muscles and you're going to have a higher aerobic capacity. So it almost seems like a no-brainer way of approaching this. So, and I really do think it's sort of the wave of the future.
Yeah, that's what my next question was going to be like. Do you see this being one of those products that every endurance athlete starts to use? I mean, every endurance athlete has their recovery drink, their water, their recovery
right.
costs, those kind of things. Do you think this is going to be included?
Oh, yeah, and I think it's just a matter of time before everyone's catching on, again, because it goes back to it's safe and it's effective and it's legal, and you feel better. So I really don't see any negative aspects of this. And, if you really look at all the money that as athletes we put into, having the right supplements and having the right sports drinks and recovery drinks, if you do the dollars and cents and the math, it's actually a pretty affordable way to increase performance too.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point.
So I've really enjoyed so far, and I'm excited that I've gotten a chance to be using it. Thank you. And I'd also like to add that, even though I do talk about using it in, all these short speed work and sprint sets, I'm actually going to be racing half Ironman and full Ironman distance races. So, it's not just for the short sprinting efforts. It's really, across the board for all endurance.
All right, well, Marissa, thank you so much for your feedback and input. I mean, it's extremely valuable to hear from such a high-level endurance athlete how oxygen can benefit, an athlete in your type of sport. We totally appreciate your time.
All right, thanks a lot.